Hello again everyone, I'm Daniel, the cross-cultural nerd, here with another video for you today. So over the course of the life of this channel so far, over the last few months, I have posted several videos about China, and some of you out there watching might be wondering, what's China like? If I go to China, what can I expect to see and do and hear and that sort of thing? And China's got a lot going for it. It's got a very long history, lots of really cool historical places to explore. The food's amazing, for the most part, and outside of the most affluent cities, a lot of things can also be pretty cheap as well. However, there are some things in this culture that you just have to deal with. You just have to get used to. These things can often be just plain different at the least, all the way to shocking or inconvenient, just depending on what it is. I'd like to tell you about some of them today. So, I'm going to tell you 5 things that every expat must get used to upon coming to China. Number 1. The stairs. Now, I will say, some expats here in China don't have to deal with this so much. If they're in one of the administrative regions, or in Beijing, or in perhaps some of the provincial capitals, they might not have to deal with this due to the fact that there are more foreigners there. However, if you're not in one of those cities, often a second-tier city or below, you might have to deal with people staring at you because you're a comparative rarity. These more affluent cities will typically have more foreigners, and they can draw more foreigners to them because they typically pay higher in salary. These other cities, though, not quite so much. And so, places like Luoyang, being the second most affluent city in Henan province, which to Beijing and Shanghai people isn't saying much, but whatever. We only have about 150-ish foreigners here, give or take a couple dozen. I was in Xinzheng, which is another smaller city in Henan province, and I was at Xias International University, which has the most foreign teachers of any single university campus in China. They've got around 130-ish foreign teachers, maybe more, several of whom have families. On top of that, there are around 120, 130 other international students. So, in total, we're talking around 260 plus foreigners. These foreigners also comprise about 95% of the entire foreigner population in Xinzheng. So you go out of the campus, lots of eyes are drawn to you. Here in Henan, outside of Zhengzhou, we get stares. In other places, if you're not in one of the more affluent cities or in a provincial capital, you're going to draw some stares. And, no offense to these people, but if you are black or brown, you're probably going to get even more stares because you're just that much rarer here in China. Those stares will be further multiplied if you are a foreigner in a romantic relationship with a Chinese person. And often even more so if you're a foreign man dating a Chinese woman, because some people are a little bit sensitive to the gender imbalance that was caused by the after effects of the one-child policy. However, most reactions will be interest or excitement for you, or curiosity. Any looks of malice are typically in the small minority. Either way, when you come to China, if you're a foreigner, white, black, or brown, because if you're already East Asian ancestry, you won't get a second glance, be prepared for people to just go as you pass by, especially if the city you're in is third tier or below. Number 2, impolite comments. Now, I've mentioned that as foreigners, we draw a lot of stares. People are curious about us. And some of the braver ones will greet us, say hello or ni hao, and ask where you're from, or where you work, how long have you been in China, that sort of thing. And those are all perfectly normal questions. However, some others are questions that we might find slightly strange or even impolite in our own cultures, such as, how much money do you make? I've had this question asked of me several times, especially by taxi drivers, not quite so much in the general populace, but oftentimes after I've been asked what kind of work I do, I'll be asked how much money I make. And that's definitely not something that is considered a really polite question back in the US. Sometimes I will resign myself to it and just tell them. More recently, though, I've just been like, hey, you know what? I'm really not comfortable talking about my salary, that sort of thing. And either way is okay. And if people press the question, you can either repeat yourself or just say, "Timbledon," like I don't understand. If they keep pressing the question and feign ignorance, if you like. A lot of Chinese people will often make comments about one's health or about one's body that would be considered impolite in the US. They will point out if you have lost weight or gained weight, especially if you're an acquaintance or friend. So they might say, "Hey, you gained weight this summer," and in America that might be a bit embarrassing. Or other things like remarking on your health, like, "Oh, you should eat this to be more healthy. You should eat less of this. You should do this. You should do that. You should not have the air conditioner on so much. You should drink more hot drinks. You should eat and drink less cold stuff." Which, I mean, we Americans, we like our cold drinks. We like our iced tea, our iced soda, and even if we don't like ice and stuff, we still like our drinks cold. Another one, hot water. You should drink more hot water. Which, all of these, if an American kept telling you unsolicited advice about your health, yeah, we might get a little uncomfortable. Now, these comments are not malicious or mocking in nature, 99% of the time, but still, at least an American would be a little put off by such comments, especially if a fellow American were saying them. But it's common here. It's something that we often just have to deal with. This is China. They don't go by American culture or British culture or Chilean culture or the culture of wherever you're from. Number 3, which I mentioned briefly in the last one, the fixation on hot water. In foreign countries, especially in the West, we like our cold drinks. In fact, we'll typically save our hot beverages solely for coffee or tea, or maybe hot chocolate and hot apple cider in the winter. Now in China, they've got a lot of the same cold beverages, especially in summer. But here in China, there seems to be a special emphasis on the consumption of plain hot water. Nothing else. In all seasons, not just in the winter months. Hot water has been declared for many decades now as being extremely good for your body, and many businesses and restaurants will have hot water readily available for people to drink. People claim there are many benefits to drinking hot water. Some people claim that drinking cold beverages along with hot food is bad for the stomach. It's something that their parents or grandparents may have told them. There's another belief that cold water or cold drinks will solidify the fats in one's stomach and make digestion more difficult, while hot water will make digestion easier. But that has been scientifically refuted in the past. Still, other people will cite the common practice of boiling water before you drink it to kill germs in it. And that's very much a factual tactic, especially if you're out in the wild and you're getting river water or water from a stream and you don't know how clean it is, which in China you really don't want to be drinking river water. But tap water, many people will pour tap water into a hot water kettle and then boil that water and wait until the metals in the water settle before it's okay to drink. It was very strange when I first came across the frequency of hot water consumption here, even in summer. But after 6 years, I've just gotten used to it. Heck, sometimes I even like it, you know. But just expect that you're going to get a lot more offers for hot beverages, even in summer here. And some people might even raise an eyebrow at your wanting something colder. Number 4, short notice. A lot of people like to make plans. And especially if it's plans for something really important or for something that will last most of a day or a few days or longer, we like to make plans way ahead of time. Now, here in China, many times the notice given for such things will be a little bit less, depending on who you're working with. I mean, there are still many businesses and schools and stuff that will give notice of things happening a few days or a few weeks ahead of time, but other people seem to have a problem with doing this. Some people will wait until almost the last moment to give due notice before something happens. Let me give a few examples. Just the other day, I was at my side job, and one of my Chinese coworkers, put out a message saying, "Hey guys, next Monday we're going to go whitewater rafting, and we need to figure out who's going to go. So please tell me before 6 p.m. if you can go, so we can get the tickets." And it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon when she sent this out. And I had to tell her, "Hey, hang on, let me contact my wife and see if she has anything planned for that day." And she didn't, so I'm able to go. But still, it's really annoying finding out something 2 hours before a deadline when you need to be told probably a day ahead of time in order to have enough time to talk with the people who might have other plans for the day, you know? I've had moments as an international student when people will wait until the end of class to announce that there was going to be a meeting at the end of class, and then they'll tell me it's going to be 5 minutes, and lo and behold, it's 30 or 40 minutes, and my lunch plans are canceled. There is one moment, my first year at CIAS, when one of the higher-ups in the School of Chinese Language and Culture, who were managing the international students, waited until after curfew, after the dorm doors were locked, because that's a thing they do here, and then said, "Hey guys, we're going to go to Zhengzhou for your physical at 7 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. So be out there bright and early at 7 a.m. with 300 RMB cash in hand so you can pay the fees." And again, we were already locked into the dorm for the night, and he couldn't get out because it's locked, and we couldn't go to the ATM. And so 7 o'clock hits, we asked the person if we could go to the ATM, and he got angry. Because, well, why didn't you have the cash on you beforehand? Because you locked the door and then told us, you dingbat. The guy who succeeded him was much better about it, but we still had some moments of really short notice. Probably the worst instance I've heard of this happening did not happen to me. It happened to a coworker. One of my fellow teachers here had gotten his class schedule, and he had confirmed his class schedule that afternoon. It was on a Sunday afternoon. And that's another thing. People here don't do a lot of advanced class selection. It's all done like the week before the semester begins. And so I typically don't know my class schedule until half a week or a week before the semester starts. Anyway, getting back to this. My coworker confirmed his schedule the Sunday before class started. And then Monday morning at 8 o'clock, or was it 8:30, whenever class started, he gets a call and says, "Hey, all your students are here waiting for you." And Monday morning at that time was not a time that his schedule had class on it. And he's like, "Wait a sec, hey, I don't have class." And like, "Yeah, but we just changed the time of one of the classes, so you have a class now." And he had to throw clothes on, take a taxi to the campus, and start class like a half hour late because these guys waited until literally the last minute to finish arranging his classes. Thankfully, I have not had that sort of thing happen to me, but some things have come close. So be ready for some announcements to not have quite so much notice as you are accustomed to having. For number 5, I have a certain word in Chinese. It's very common and it draws a glance and a reaction from every Westerner who hears it. Those of you who have been to China can probably guess. It's the word naga. Or, as it's more often said, nega. Alright, now, before you go hitting that report button, hear me out. That is not a racial slur. I know it sounds like a certain really bad racial slur in English, which I will not say, because I'm white and not a racist, but this is Chinese here. The word actually means that, like the relative pronoun that, as in that one. And let me explain, okay? Give you a little Chinese linguistics lesson. So first you have the word na. Now keep in mind, Chinese is tonal. So you got 4 tones. Using na, we have na, 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 na. And this is the 4th tone. Na means that. And sometimes it's pronounced as ne. And when you change it to the 3rd tone, instead of na, you say na or ne, it becomes the word for which, as in which one. Now, remember this for later, okay? Now, you have this thing in Chinese called measure words. We have measure words in English too, like an inch of string or a yard of string, an acre of property, a gallon of milk, a pint of beer, a bottle of beer, a sheet of paper, a piece of pie, a group of people, stuff like that. Now, they have similar things in Chinese, but for everything. So let me explain some of these measure words. Zhi or zhi is used as the measure word for an animal, or like a dog, 一只狗, a cat, 一只猫, or one cat, same meaning. You might have the word wei, which is the measure word for a person, like the formal, professional measure word for a person. So if you go to a restaurant and they say, how many people? 几位. Literally, how many people? If you wanted to stretch it out, you could say 几位人. Now, there is a measure word for everything in general. The general measure word, ge. If you're learning Chinese and you forget every other one of the over 100 measure words in Chinese, you can still not go too wrong with ge. People will still know what you mean. So if you forget zhi and you say 一个狗 instead of 一只狗 for a dog, people will still know what you mean. Now, again, this is the one for everything in general. And informally, you can use this with people or things. And so when you're talking about a thing, 一个东西, a person, 一个人. Now, remember what we said about na? Na means that. And remember, this goes with the measure word too. So, which person would be 哪个人, or that person would be 那个人. But again, na can also be said as ne. I learned in my Chinese book that ne was only used sometimes, but apparently that sometimes is with the word ge. So, na plus ge means, or is naga. That one. The other one, ne plus ge is nega. And I hear that word a lot. And it's extremely jarring the first few times you hear it. Because you hear someone talking and they say that, and I'm like, what did you just say? And they're not saying a racial slur. It just means that thing, that person, that blah, blah, blah. And you know how if you're thinking of something that you really want to say, and you're thinking of a word and you can't think of it, and it's like right on the tip of your tongue, and you're like, oh, that. Same thing in Chinese. They do the same thing with naga or nega, and if they are really stuck on a word, it can sound like a certain song from Gangsta Rap, the Glockumentary. Not gonna sing it for you, because I'm white. But you get the idea. Now, a lot of Chinese people study English. Anyone who's learned a foreign language can attest to the urge to shift into their mother tongue when they're stuck on a word in the language they're trying to learn. And Chinese people are no exception. And sometimes they'll say the word they want to say in Chinese. Sometimes they'll be stuck on a word and they'll get into that thing that I mentioned earlier, but in Chinese. And so you'll hear the word naga or nega sometimes interspersed through their conversation as they're trying to think of what they want to say. Like for instance, let's say a Chinese student is telling me about his day or her day, and they'll say, this weekend I went to the zoo, and then I went to that place where you buy things, that supermarket. That's it. We went to the supermarket, and you'll hear stuff like that. I've heard this hundreds of times from my friends before I started teaching and from my students after I started teaching. Now, most people in China don't even know what the N-word is. If someone mentions the term N-word, they're not gonna know what you're talking about. If someone actually does use it, more often than not, it's going to be because they heard it in a rap song, or they heard it in some American film, and they don't know the full context of it. Now, there are a select few who do know it, and if they are speaking to you in English and they deliberately call you the N-word, like not the Chinese word for that or which, I mean the actual N-word, and you can tell that they know what it means, then definitely be angry with them. I will be angry with you too. Now, one thing that is important to note, racism does exist in some circles in China. Hopefully in the future I can do a couple of topics on that sort of thing. However, the word naga or nega, which is the relative pronoun that in most translations, is not racially motivated. So again, if you hear it in China, don't just think that they're coming up with some sort of slur for you. And if you're still skeptical, if you still don't quite believe me, I challenge you to go find a couple of Chinese people or a group of Chinese people and just listen to them speaking in Mandarin for a couple of minutes. You're going to hear it multiple times, and it really is a shock when you first hear it. I learned Naga in my Chinese class in America, then I came to China and heard Nega all the time. I still hear it all the time. They'll still say na with other measure words, but they'll use ne with ga. And it's a shock. But it's something that I had to get used to as a foreigner living in China, because it's one of the most basic words in the language. It is one of the most common words in Chinese that is not a personal pronoun or the word for is. Stares, impolite comments, a fixation on hot water, short notice, and the relative pronoun naga or nega. These have been 5 things that every expat must get accustomed to upon coming to China. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments about this particular video, my channel, or me, please put a comment in the comments section below. Remember, you can follow me on Facebook at The Cross Cultural Nerd and on Twitter at XCulturalNerd. I'm Daniel, The Cross Cultural Nerd. Hope you learned something. Have a great day. See you next time. Bye-bye.